Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Shadow Shaman. Before we jump into the video, I just wanted to say if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things, it really helps. And if you want to see more content into the future, please consider clicking the Patreon link down below and going to my Patreon, signing up for coaching, or just supporting me in general for that $5 or $10 a month. It really helps because for whatever reason, YouTube has not monetized my channel, so I make absolutely no money for making all this content. So in order to keep up making content into the future, if you guys really like it and you want to see more of it, please consider supporting if you can. Now that we got that out of the way, let's jump back to the video. So Shadow Shaman is a support hero, pretty much only played as a support hero. He's not really one of those heroes that plays mid, even though he's mostly a support. It's just not the way the hero works. The hero mainly works as a support, either 4 or 5, and what this hero does is two things. It has very good lockdown, like long lockdown, probably the most lockdown for any support in its normal spells in like the entire game. There's a lot of other heroes that have long lockdown spells like ultimates and things like Black Hole or what have you, but this hero can chain stun you forever. Honestly, it just feels insane. If you're able to get off all of your spells, you can pretty much just never get away from this hero. It's absolutely ridiculous what this hero can do. The other main way to think about Shadow Shaman is that you push towers extremely quickly. Your ultimate is a good teamfight ultimate, but it's also a really good tower pushing ultimate because you spawn a bunch of these little wards that you can see here, and they can attack towers. So you can basically get Ags, Refresher, other things on this hero to push towers extremely quickly. So you're not only a good teamfight hero in that you lock people down really quickly, but also extremely lengthy lockdown, really long lockdown. You know, you chain stun people forever, but you also have a really good pushing ability as well. And that's the main way to think about this hero. And I think Shadow Shaman is a very good hero for people to play that are kind of new to the game or trying to learn support, or trying to have a lot of impact with support, because he has a decent bit of burst damage in the lane. He can kind of harass out. He has good right click damage. He's squishy, so you need to, position yourself correctly, but he also has really good lockdown that can honestly turn fights if you catch people out of position. And you can also push towers. So if your carry's not pushing the tower, or if your team doesn't have push in general, you can push basically by yourself. You can either split push, or you can push with your team, and it'll just like ramp up that pushing power that your team has. So that's Shadow Shaman. That's how to think about the hero. Now let's jump in and take a look at his abilities. So now that we understand Shaman in general, we can take a look at his abilities and see how he's able to be that good, really long lockdown hero that also has some tower push as well. But first, we're going to take a look at his Q ability, which is Ether Shock, and this just does magical burst damage. It's a pretty good ability in lane for harassing. It also is good for pushing waves and farming creeps and things like that. So we can actually go up here and we can use it on some creeps. Let me see, I click it on the range creep and I do damage to every creep in the AoE there, so it's very good for that. I can also use it on enemies, so I can use it on the axe here. It shocks the dummy target as well as the axe. If I use it on the dummy target, though, keep in mind it's not going to hit the axe, so you kind of want to use it on the further away target because the axe has to actually be pretty close there for it to actually hit. So the axe, it hits him there, but I don't think it's going to hit there. Yeah, see? So keep in mind there is an AoE based on where you're casting it, but it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit different than you would think, because if I cast it on the axe, it almost like comes out in an arc from the Shadow Shaman. It doesn't just like hit the axe and then in an AoE, it just actually matters where you are and where you're facing, etc., etc. So, it's a little bit weird in that sense, but it's very good for, securing range creeps in lane, for pushing waves, farming, for harassing enemies in lane, those kinds of things. And then the last thing I'll say about it is keep in mind that you don't just have to use it to like secure last hits. You can just go to a wave, do this, secure the range creep, and then walk away, and the wave will automatically push. So later in the game, if you don't want to, be super vulnerable, you can just use this to push side lanes pretty easily. So that's Ether Shock. Next, we're going to look at Hex. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You just click Hex on an enemy. They turn into a chicken for a pretty good duration. They can walk around a little bit, but they're not very fast at all. So it's also instant cast, no cast animation really. So very good for locking people down, especially from fog. So that's Hex. Now, usually you buy Blink on this hero, and you can combo Hex with the next ability, Shackles, which is a very long duration stun. And what you usually do is you will blink in. So you blink in, you cast Hex, then you Aether Shock, and then before the Hex is out, you grab them with Shackles. And what Shackles does is it's a channeled ability, so you see this full channel duration there, and they are stunned for the duration, and they take a little bit of damage. It's not a ton of damage. You can see Axe is slowly ticking down for the duration. It's not really a lot. The damage is only just very minor. Obviously, the squishier the hero, the more damage it will do in terms of, like, percentage HP, obviously, so it can be significant for squishy supports and these kinds of things. But mainly, it's that the fact that the lockdown total with this hero is so long. So you can see max level 3.5 for Hex, max level 5 seconds for Shackles. So that's 8.5 seconds of lockdown, let alone if another enemy or another hero comes to kill this enemy hero with you in the side lane or something like that, and they have some kind of disable, they have some kind of stun, something like that. You can disable people forever with this hero. It's just absolutely insane what you can do. And if you can buy Blink, Hex people instantly, it's very, very good in those cases as well. And you can actually get to the point with cooldown reduction and other stuff like that where you almost pretty much permanently Hex people and shackle them and these kinds of things, because Hex has a decent cooldown, but Shackles right now only has a 10-second cooldown, so it's at max level. So it's very, very good. You can, disable people for super long, and then Shackles is up almost immediately after. It's kind of crazy how long that you can disable people. And if you use Shackles first, and then you use Hex, because the cooldown is so low, and then you use Hex after, Shackles will be up almost immediately after the Hex is done. It's very, very good in that regard as well. So that's all of the main abilities for Shaman. Now let's look at his ultimate, Mass Serpent Wards. Basically what you do is you press this ability in this little AoE, and it spawns a bunch of little Serpent Wards, and they just attack on intervals, and they do a significant amount of damage. You can see it's like melting axe. They also have a good range there, so they can attack enemy creeps, they can attack enemy units, these kinds of things. You can also use it to push towers, so you can basically cast it right at a tower, and it'll push the tower here. Now the tower will attack these creeps, so keep in mind, it takes a couple attacks from towers, from heroes, and a few more attacks from enemy creeps. So you can see the creeps do less damage than the towers and the enemy heroes to it. So the enemy heroes can clear it. So something where they do give gold and you don't just want to feed them away, but they do insane amounts of damage. So if you cast this ability when there aren't enemies around, it is kind of crazy how much damage you can do to enemies, to towers, these kinds of things. It pushes really, really well. The other thing is you do offer a lot of solo kill potential, because you can blink in. You can blink in, Hex, Shock, Ultimate, and then grab heroes, and then look at how much damage these wards are doing here to Axe. It's kind of ridiculous, and with each level, they get stronger and stronger. They're harder to kill if I think there's some talents, and you can buy Ag Scepter, which make them even better, these kinds of things. You can buy Shard to make your Shackles, like, pretty much permanent disable. It's kind of insane what you can do with that, so, yeah, that's pretty much how you can combo all of his abilities together. You can see how he can be a very, very good support for just locking people down and also for pushing towers. So that's Shaman. That's how to use his abilities. That's the main way to think about Shaman. And I'll jump into a game and see how he's played. Now we're jumping into a game here of Crit playing Shadow Shaman 4 position. And this hero can pretty much play 4 or 5. It does like to play 4, though, because it does like to have items. But regardless, it can play pretty much either position, because you do like to get Blink and all these kinds of things, but you can still be effective without items like Blink or Aether Lens or even Ags and these kinds of things. But mainly what you want to be doing with this hero early on in the game is two things. One, you actually have significant right-click damage. So you can see here, Shadow Shaman, with the items that he bought, he actually doesn't really have that many damage items. He has 1 Iron Branch for 1 damage. He has Fairy Fire for 2 damage, and he's doing 77 damage. This hero has insane damage for right-clicks. And then when you combine this with 1 point in Aether Shock, you can cast this a lot of times in lane. It has a decent cooldown early on, but you can use it a lot. You are really, really effective at trading. So if you have any kind of strong, tanky, good, aggressive offlaner, Axe is pretty good. Even level 1, Axe is decent. So you can see how much damage they're actually dishing out. Obviously, Bane is very good at trading too with decent damage, but also his Brain Sap. But still, you can see how much damage this Shaman is able to trade. And usually, if you're playing at 4 position, you're against a pretty squishy 5, and then a carry that's really not that strong. So your main thing you want to do is obviously harass the carry, really just right-click them, try to get trades in. Obviously, you want regen so you can be effective with those trades. But the other thing you can try to do also is secure creeps with Aether Shock. So you can secure creeps with your right click or with Aether Shock to secure those range creeps, because obviously they're super important in the laning stage. You can also secure denies like that because he just has so much right click damage. So this hero is not just a hero where you're going to be focusing on your spells early on. You do want to focus on your right clicks a lot because you just do so much damage. And you don't always have to use Aether Shock to secure those range creeps. You can actually out-CS a lot of carries, even if they are melee carries that buy Quelling Blade. You can out-CS them a lot because you still have more damage than a lot of carries, even with your just base right-click damage. So that's one of the main things to think about the hero, to understand about the hero, is the right-click damage is insane, and you can do a lot with Aether Shock. Also, if the enemy has no stuns, once you get the Shackles, level 1 Shackles is still really good. You can do some extra damage and just lock people down a lot. So this is a very potent lane here with Axe Shadow Shaman. It's kind of crazy how aggressive you can be with this hero. It's a very, very strong laning hero. So that's kind of mainly Shadow Shaman's laning stage as a support. Other things, obviously pulling, stacking, these kinds of things, the normal stuff, warding, all this kind of harass stuff, all this game that you play as a support, it's the same regardless of the support, but he is a very strong, aggressive support. It's not like a kind of support. A lot of supports you need to be passive on because they're weak early, but not Shadow Shaman. He's extremely aggressive, he's extremely strong, especially early on. So the next thing I wanted to show you is kind of the transition out of the lane stage. A lot of supports do like to rotate. If you're not dominating your lane, or you think that the Axe can kind of, like, you know, your offlaner, or even your carry can solo, coming mid or rotating to other lanes is definitely a possibility, and this hero is very, very good at that because of those 2 stuns that you can offer early, also that little bit of burst damage. So even though he's only level 3, he can kind of offer a lot in these fights. You can see he goes in here, he locks down the Invoker, gets chased by the Riki, the support Riki, but he actually has plenty of survivability with those stick charges, and then he's able to use both of his spells multiple times in the fight. So he uses his Hex again, he uses his Shackles again, and they are able to secure this kill here on the Riki. And you can just see how potent this hero can be early on. Even though he only has level 3, you can use your spells multiple times in a game. So coming mid, helping out your mid if you know there's any kind of gank, or even rotating to the opposite lane if you need to. Let's say you are supporting your carry, but he's doing great. You can go to the off lane to secure that tower. If you're in the off lane and your Axe is doing great, or your off lane is doing great, you can go help your carry, etc., etc. This hero has a lot of potential. It can be very, very potent early in the game because of his spells that are really good lockdown, like I've talked about before, and the way that you can use them multiple times in a fight. So that's pretty much Shadow Shaman transitioning out of the lane stages. You want to look to use your spells and be effective and gank, because anybody that's out of position, you can lock them down for a super long time and allow your teammates to pump out a lot of damage. So the next clip is he was being a little bit aggressive with the Axe, but he literally just hit 6 right before he died with that aggression with the Axe, and then he immediately just goes mid, just places the wards down at this mid-tier tower, because tier 1 tower, because it's pretty much the most important tower in the game, and he just puts a lot of pressure on the mid tower. Now, they're obviously not going to get it with these wards, but the catapult is coming in, so it's very important to try to hit 6 before that 10-minute timing so that you can get your wards out on a tower with that catapult. I think that's a really, really important thing to do if you're going to be playing Shadow Shaman. Now, obviously, they don't take the tower. The Kunkka ends up dying because they dive, but they have to bring a lot of heroes mid, and if we just look briefly over here at the tower is now down to 600 HP. It was almost full before that started. So basically one other time of, catapult push or a wards that go down, in the next 90 seconds or so, in a minute and a half. If he places wards there again, or they get any opportunity to take that tower is almost dead. So that's one of those things. You don't necessarily need to secure towers every time. It's obviously good if you do, but the best thing to do is obviously to get a lot of damage on the tower. So it's like kind of whittling the towers away over time. It's not necessarily that it's not a failure, basically, is what I'm saying. If you're not securing the tower immediately with your first ultimate, it doesn't matter, because it's early on in the game. It's 10 minutes. Your ult is going to come back up. You can keep using it on these towers. Now, obviously, you don't want to just like place it down right in front of the enemy. You don't want to feed them gold, because they can get the gold from it. You want to kind of coordinate with your team or split push when nobody's there, but it is one of these things that using your ult off cooldown early on to push towers is extremely important, because it's one of the main things that you offer other than your lockdown. Is you don't offer a ton of ganking potential till you get blink. You don't offer really all that much other than lockdown if you're counter ganking these kinds of things to defend towers. You don't really offer a ton of burst damage, because he's only going to have 1 point in his Aether Shock. So really the tower pushing is the way that you need to play the hero, what you need to focus on every time your ultimate is off cooldown. So that's kind of how to transition this hero into that early mid-game portion when you have your ultimate up. Now, the next thing I want to show you here is actually, it's kind of a team fight, but he was a little bit late. It's more how you can get solo pickoffs with your abilities here. And obviously, this is sort of at the tail end of a team fight, so it's not exactly a solo pickoff, but the same principle applies, whether that's in the side lane. If you know the enemy is by themselves, they have no help, you can easily secure solo kills, not just on supports, but even on cores sometimes, with your abilities. If you have your full duration shackle available, obviously he's pretty low level, he's only level 7 right now, but if he was kind of, higher level, maybe level 15 or something, 16, 2 levels in his ultimate there, you would definitely be able to fully kill a lot of cores, especially squishy cores, if you catch them out solo. So I just wanted to show you that little segment because that's basically how you can catch people out solo. And you don't always have to use your ultimate for pushing or even for defending an area, but you can also use it to solo kill people in the side lanes or if you know they're alone, like after that team fight there when he solo killed Bane. Now, we fast-forwarded a little bit here, and the next thing I want to show you is kind of how to team fight with this hero when you have ultimate up and there's no, like, tower you're going to push, because this ultimate ability that he has can be very, very effective at counter-ganking. So we see that Mars casts his arena, the enemy jumps in, and basically he secures the area by casting his wards, because obviously they already took the mid-tier 1. We didn't see that. They took kind of a good fight, actually, without him, and they ended up taking the mid-tier 1. But the point is that your wards aren't just the pushing tool. They also are kind of an area securing tool. So it's similar to how the arena secured that area and was trying to secure that area for the enemy, so too can your wards kind of counter-secure areas. So what you want to do is, if there's no obvious objective where if you win this fight, you're going to take that objective, what you want to do with your ultimate is you want to place it down in such a way that you know, the enemy's trying to go in this area, the enemy's trying to commit on you in this area, initiate on you in this area, and you place down the wards, and you say, okay, if you're going to fight here, you're not going to be able to win this fight because you're going to have to clear this ward, these wards, and deal with them, or you're going to basically just get pummeled by these wards. And the wards do significant amounts of damage. They actually cannot be underestimated. So it's almost like Tombstone, like Undying Tombstone in that way, kind of securing an area in a team fight. So I think that's a really, really good way to think about that ultimate in team fight. But obviously, the other ways is just you're going to lock down people with your spells. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, not that hard to understand. That's actually a really good thing that I wasn't really planning to show you, but right there is that instant hex. So there's basically no way that the Pudge can actually get his ult off before he gets his hex off, unless he ults him like in the cast animation of the pull from the hook. But a lot of times, even if you get, you know, put out of position or something happens, you can hex them almost instantly. So you can see how the Pudge is complaining there because of the fact that he hexed them so quickly. But it is definitely something you can do with that instant hex, so keep that in mind. But obviously during team fights and all these things, hexing people, stunning them for long duration, these are all things you can do that are pretty obvious, pretty straightforward in team fights. But yeah, making sure you're using that ultimate to zone out or counter initiate is also an important part of the hero as well, not just pushing. Now the next thing I want to show you here is basically how to push with this hero. Obviously you lay your wards down, but this is pushing and team fighting basically, is you lay your wards down, but really you don't want to be in the center of everything. So you see how he's taking a lot of damage in the center of everything. Thankfully, they have the boat to come out, they have the Omni ult to come out, but he immediately retreats. He's pretty low health. He's basically just waiting for opportunities to use his hex, to counter-initiate with the hex. So basically what you want to do in fights is you want to sit in the back, kind of be one of the very back players in the fight, one of the very back heroes, kind of sitting out of vision where the enemy can't see you. And then you really only show yourself and walk in at the tail end of the fight when somebody initiates, either whether your team initiates or whether the enemy initiates, to counter-initiate or to follow that up with a stun of your own, with a shackle of your own. What you do want to be concerned about, though, is like who can kill you, like the Riki there, who can catch him out because he's low HP, or who can cancel your shackle stun. That's definitely something to be thinking about through most games. Is like, do they have long-range stuns? Who really has stuns on their team, and who can cancel my shackles? Because basically, if you're looking out for that, so here, obviously, they have Hook, they have the Silence from Riki, they have Bane, and they have Spear, they have a lot of Invoker spells, all these kinds of things. So they have a lot of stuff that can cancel his Hook, but not every game is going to be like that. A lot of times, not Hook, his Shackle. So not every game is going to be like that. A lot of times you'll have maybe a couple things that you have to worry about, and if you see those spells being thrown out, then you know that you're going to get a free shackle, and then they have to commit to basically kill you full to zero to end your shackle while your team is just absolutely destroying your enemy. So just keep that in mind. It's obviously something to look out for. Not every game is going to be a good shackle game, but some games are extremely, extremely good shackle games. So that's kind of how to think about Shadow Shaman in team fights, and how to push with Shadow Shaman. Obviously, you're going to want to use your ultimate, those kinds of things, but that's the main way that you can think about Shadow Shaman in team fights, is just sitting in the back, waiting for good opportunities to counter-initiate and to catch people out of position with your stunning spells. So that is my Shadow Shaman guide. Thanks everybody for watching it. I hope it helps you play the hero a little bit better, understand how the hero is played in all its dynamic ways. I think it's a really, really good support for newer players to play. It has a lot of lockdown, also a lot of tower push, like I said, and like I showed you. So hopefully you can get good at playing Shadow Shaman. It's a pretty fun hero, pretty dynamic in that way, that offers a lot of different things to fight. It's not just one-dimensional in that way. So that's Shadow Shaman. That's how to play him. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things if you enjoyed the video. Join the Discord if you haven't already. You can request replay reviews there. Make sure to tune into Twitch and even here on YouTube on Fridays where I do replay reviews and play pubs and other things like that. And as always, join the Patreon if you haven't already, just to support me so you can see more content like this in the future. And if you want coaching, you can go to Patreon as well. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.